Welcome to Dead Reckoning TV. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Mattson. Today, in our Above the Pay Grade segment, we're speaking with Jennifer Lahl. She is the president of the Center for Bioethics and Culture. Recently, Jennifer produced and directed a new documentary film entitled Breeders, a New Subclass of Women. Jennifer, thanks for coming on the show. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Good morning.
Jennifer, your documentary tackles a topic that not many people in average, ordinary day-to-day life think about, but apparently you do a lot of thinking about it, and you are serving the public by raising awareness as to this issue of breeders, a subclass of women. What is a breeder, and why would she be a subclass?
Well, in the context of the film, we're looking at women who are paid to gestate babies for other people. So it's literally the buying and selling of babies. And it is my belief, and I don't stand alone, I have many people all around the world who agree with me, that this is a modern day breeding class of women. Women are literally paid for a service. And that service in the context of our work is to have babies and give those babies away, or give those babies away for a large sum of money.
Yeah, and money seems to be one of the big issues. It strikes me as I watched your film, but it's not just the financial transaction. It seems to me this has moral implications. It has legal implications, and of course, the money becomes problematic. I mean, we really are talking about buying and selling babies and renting female bodies. Isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah, and we're renting their bodies for about 9 to 10 months. And I often remind audiences when I speak that it's low-income women that are signing up to rent out their wombs because they need the money. And it's people of financial means that are hiring these women. And it's literally, contracts. So you are being hired to perform a service. You are being treated as a new breeding class, a new subclass of women. One of the women in the film was even told by one of the attorneys on her case when she, lobbied and fought for custody with the children, that the law needs to change so that the law can recognize a class of women that will be seen as breeders.
Wow, how dehumanizing is that? That you're just a breeder.
Well, when you're being paid to have a baby. And sometimes women change their minds because, lo and behold, they get attached to that little baby growing in their womb. Little children in the home get attached to the baby that mommy's having. So it's not uncommon for a surrogate mother to change her mind and not be able to give away that baby or surrender that baby. So the law wants to recognize, no, you were just hired for a service. You have no rights. You signed a contract, and this child is not yours. And you are being paid to perform a service, so you're in breach of contract. Hence the title, Breeders, a Subclass of Women.
In the film, you interview a number of women who have acted as surrogate mothers for various couples. This is an obvious thing that's used by same-sex couples. Particularly, homosexual men obviously can't have babies, so they hire surrogates. Something struck me about these women who are now looking back at their experience, and one of the problems they run up against, as you just suggested, is that we're not robots. As human beings, we're more than just the sum of our economic decisions, and it's amazing how they struggled with the fact that they're sort of moral puppets. The gal who had the baby that had some deformities, and the parents had quote unquote, we have 3 parents involved here, had made this decision that, no, we want to abort the child, and now we have this surrogate rented womb. Now, wait a minute. Now, whose choice is this at the end of the day? The champions of choice. She had a moral crisis. What am I supposed to do? I can't abort this baby. You're talking about now my body, my risk, my medical risk. It seems to me, Jennifer, we're not only just talking about rented wombs, we're treating women as just moral automatons. They're just puppets. They're not moral creatures with any responsibilities anymore. Isn't that true?
Yeah, it really is, and it's quite unsettling to me, to see that reproduction and the bringing forth of new life has just become quite the commodity, and it really is a consumer-driven, enterprise. So, you mentioned Heather in the film, and she literally was told by this husband and wife that had contracted with her and had paid her to have a child, when the child was diagnosed with, genetic and health problems, to terminate, abort the pregnancy, and she refused. And the father of this intended couple said, "Well, you need to obey us. And if you don't obey us," he even said, "you'll suffer spiritual consequences for your disobeying of our orders." So, and this is happening in America. We haven't even talked about what's happening in Thailand and Mexico and India, where women truly are treated as a breeding class. But we wanted to focus really on what's happening in the United States, because it's easy for us to say, "Oh, well, that happens in poor countries, and isn't that horrible how women are exploited and whatnot?" But we're seeing, the United States is second to countries like India for the global commercialization of a breeding class.
In the United States, you point out in the film, is actually quite liberal in its laws. I mean, there really aren't any laws that cover or regulate surrogacy. So much so that you point out in that Europe is far ahead of us in terms of regulating this practice. Is that true?
Yeah, that's really true. And I do travel and speak all around the world, and quite a few of the endorsements that we got for breeders came from feminists in Israel and Australia and our neighbors in Canada. Under federal Canadian law, it is illegal to buy and sell egg or sperm and or to pay a woman to have a pregnancy. And if you look at the basis of a lot of these European laws, it's profound. It talks about the dignity of women. It talks about the dignity of children. It talks about the concern of exploitation when baby making becomes a commercial enterprise. It's driven by contracts and money, and how that corrupts what should be, a natural, beautiful thing that happens between, women and their bodies and their children. So the language is quite lovely. Even in the United States, where we have quite a patchwork of regulation, where we do have some states are silent, we have none. We can talk maybe about, I was just in Kansas a few weeks ago testifying at a Senate hearing where, Christian after Christian lined up with their surrogates and toad, talking about God's blessing and how surrogacy is wonderful and how pro-life it is and blah, blah, blah. But, our work is really focused on trying to get some kind of cohesive laws in the United States. And what's happening now with the liberalization, what the Supreme Court did with same-sex marriage and marriage equality, whatever words or phrases you like to use, we're seeing a real quick maneuver by the gay activists and the gay lobbyists. So, for example, New York State, which right now on New York State law prohibits commercial surrogacy, you can do it altruistically. They're really pushing the gay lobbyists to allow women in New York State to be paid to be breeders, because if you want to have marriage equality, part of marriage equality is equal access to children, and modern family building stuff. So we're kind of scrambling. We're a rough, small little scrappy organization. We always say, two men and a baby. We're like, two people in a movie. Yeah. Kind of out there trying to change the laws and get the United States to stop. As one of the legal experts in the film says, let's pause. Yeah. Let's pause and really have some deep reflection on. We're talking about a new way of making families as we've never seen before. And I was a pediatric nurse for 20 years. What about the children?
Right. Nobody's asking that question, are they, Jennifer? Nobody's asking that question.
It's like, I've got money, and I need money, and we got a lawyer, we got a contract, let's get busy.
Wow. Well, you're not just two people in a film. You have some interesting allies, it strikes me. I was quite surprised at first at the appearance in your film of representatives from the National Organization for Women, the Now crowd. Has this is an issue that seems to me to maybe cause a little bit of a crack or a rift in their ideology, because if feminism, modern feminism as represented by Now, is to be believed, complete sexual and reproductive autonomy is the baseline. That's what we're all about. A woman should be able to do whatever she wants with her body, including act as make it a commodity, put it up for rent, have a child. What is wrong with that? And it's interesting, Jennifer. You have some representatives of now who are actually seeing maybe this reproductive autonomy or reproductive freedom has some limits.
Yeah, and actually, just to be clear, now doesn't have an official position
Right.
against this, but some of the leaders within now are raising their voices, like European feminists who are, what's happened in America is that abortion politics has really squelched the dialogue, whereas outside America, you'll find it's not uncommon for pro-choice and pro-life women feminists to work very nicely together and have a lot of common cause. But here in the United States, it's been quite an interesting, if not bumpy, ride, because there are, like you said, women that say if she wants to be a prostitute, if she wants to be a sex worker, it's her choice, it's her body. But there's a lot of feminists who get it, that because it's so commercially driven, that these aren't free, autonomous choices that women are making. I just got an invitation to speak at the University of Rhode Island, and they're really starting to question what is reproductive justice when you've got all these third and fourth and fifth parties. What is the justice for the surrogate who's a poor woman in India, or a military wife in America? What is the justice for the child who finds themselves in limbo? In the news right now, there's all these children that are in surrogate wombs in Thailand for gay couples in Israel, and Israel doesn't recognize gay couples, being married and having surrogate pregnancies. So these children literally will be born and not have a homeland because they can't get into Israel. So Israel's quickly looking at what to do with their law. So it's created some interesting coalitions and friendships. Patricia Ireland just endorsed breeders. Wow. I mean, she was the longest standing president of NOW. Now, she's not saying here's a policy issue, but she's saying here's a great film that needs to be part of the public conversation that has to take place. And she should say that. It is a film that greatly contributes to the public conversation. Now, I wanted to ask you, you have a representative of an organization in the film who is, it was Dr. Joe Taravella, who apparently is part of an organization that facilitates surrogacy, or he was advocating for surrogacy. And his view was essentially, I took it to be like, look, the traditional nuclear family is just a thing of the past. We have new ways of family formation, and we should just charge ahead, full steam ahead. And his answer to these kids, when all of the moral and legal and psychological, and when all of this hits the fan, his answer at the end of the day was, you were so loved and so wanted that look at all of the garbage we dealt with just to have you. Was that compelling to you? What's your answer to that? Well, it wasn't compelling to me because Breeders is the third in a series of our films on reproductive technology. And one of our films we did before Breeders was called Anonymous Father's Day, which looks at the donor-conceived kids. We now have a new census demographic, donor-conceived. They're here because somebody donated their sperm or sold their sperm. So they don't know who their father is. And those kids are, pushing back on the Hollywood movie, the kids are all right. So this notion of, well, you were so wanted, so get over your bad self and forget about it, it's just a bunch of bunk. And we learned that in, early adoption history. Back in my day, I'm much older than you, adoption records were sealed. We had to, shh, don't tell them they're adopted. Right. And then Aunt Betty would drink too much at Thanksgiving and she'd blow out and say, well, you're not really their kid anyway. And you know what? Those kids knew it all along. There were subtle clues. That they had been lied to. And so when they were finally told, well, you were adopted, they went, oh, it all makes sense now. Now I understand why I don't look like these people, or I don't laugh like them, or I never felt like I fit in. So Dr. Joe thinks as long as it's love and, the child is wanted, that we don't have to account for the fact that biology and kin matters. I mean, and I'm assuming many of your listeners are Christians.
Sure, yeah.
And we understand, you know, the mystery of the Trinity. And we don't just say, oh, it's the Father and it's the Son and the Holy Spirit. They're just kind of out there.
Yeah.
You know, there's this mystery that connects. And there's the same thing of you know, being brothers and sisters and adopted and husbands and wives. And so, you know, to fracture these bonds and to say, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that we wanted you. And oh, by the way, we exploited a woman for you, and we paid a woman for eggs, and you know, all that matters. All that matters, and I don't read that in Scripture anywhere. All that matters is that you were wanted. That's all that matters.
Yeah. God definitely looked lovingly on Abraham's attempt at surrogacy, didn't he?
I wanted to say that when I was in that Senate hearing in Kansas, because one of the fertility doctors, I write about this in an article coming out. He was testifying in favor of surrogacy because that's how he makes money. Right. And he said that morning before he came to the Senate hearing, he had his Bible in one hand and he had the Senate bill in his other hand. And he knew that if we were to prohibit surrogacy, then the greatest surrogate pregnancy that the world had never known, when Mary contracted with God. Ugh. I know.
Oh, really?
Honest to God. You can. I mean, luckily the San Francisco Chronicle picked it up, and it's in print. So.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's really sad. So well, so at the end of the day, so you're raising awareness. It's a wonderful film. You're getting this, as I understand it, into some film festivals.
Yep.
You ran a successful Kickstarter campaign to make that happen.
We did.
All right, fantastic. So our viewers can check out and find the film where?
Well, they can either buy it or they can watch it on demand. But if they go to breeders-cbc.network.org, they can either purchase a DVD or they can just pay $3.99 and just download it and watch it on their computer right now today.
And your website is cbcnetwork.org?
CBC-network.
CBC-network.org, and you can find Jennifer's film Breeders, a Subclass of Women, where she explores how this new form of family formation is causing all kinds of legal, moral, and personal problems, cultural problems that we are not adequately addressing. Jennifer, it has been wonderful talking to you. Thanks for joining us on our show. All the best to you and your film in the coming days.
Thanks for having me.